There's fish right at the shore. Just as it bounced off a rock. First fish of the day. So today I'm at Omak Lake, which is arguably the best place to catch Lahontan cutthroat trout in Washington State. But there are actually several lakes in the state that you can catch these trout at. Now, Omak Lake is on the Colville Indian Reservation. And so you have to have a tribal permit, a tribal fishing permit, and a reservation use permit to be here. So it's like 20 bucks for a day of fishing, or quite a bit more for an annual pass for both of those things. I think right around 80 bucks for the reservation use pass and 40, I believe, for the fishing license. So it's pretty spendy. But this is definitely the best place to catch these fish from shore. And I caught this one on a spinner, which is my favorite lure to use for Lahontan cutthroats. Whether I'm fishing from a boat and trolling, or whether I'm on the bank like I am today. This is just a smaller female, but she's very beautiful. They have great coloration, these fish do. And a lot of people are planning their bucket list trips for 2025, and Lahontan cutthroat is often on that list for a lot of Pacific Northwest anglers, and there's a lot of great places to catch them in Washington State. So today I thought I'd go over those places, a bit about the rules and regs for all of them, and some of the gear I use to target these fish. So there you go, a really pretty hen. They have gorgeous big spotting. They have a split tail, and they have blushing pink cheeks. The males can be much darker, and they can oftentimes get a big kype on their face. This is a pretty small one. It's probably 15, 16 inches. They definitely get much larger here. Okay, so let's go ahead and get her back on the way. There she goes. And she hit near shore, which is what they often do. So that was on a chartreuse and orange spinner. I like spinners in size 3 to 4, although you can go even bigger than that for sure, especially in the spring when there's bigger fish cruising along the shoreline. It's winter now. The water temps are really cold. I tend to do better with something that's not as big and bulky. But I do love spinners, and like I said, they can be trolled. Every Lahontan cutthroat lake in Washington State, even those managed by WDFW or the tribes, all of them are going to be barbless hooks. Now you can use barbless treble hooks on the reservation, but all but a few of the lakes run by WDFW are single point barbless hooks. So. All right, I'm going to switch this one out to a different lure, another lure that is also very effective for cutthroat trout. Okay, so next up I've got a spoon on. This is a crocodile spoon, size 3. This is a metallic. So metallics also do really well here, and they seem to really like these crocodile spoons or thin, skinny spoons. So Castmasters also work exceptionally well here. But you can cast these things a long way, and then differently than when I fish a spinner, I'm really going to key in on when I cast it out away from the shore, especially if I'm bank fishing. And as that spoon falls, a lot of times I'll get hit as well. So it's always a good idea to watch for that line to jump when that spoon's falling and fluttering through the water column out there. You can also like vertically jig these spoons really well. In fact, in the summertime when these fish go deeper and they're hanging out on the thermocline around 30, 40 feet deep in most of these lakes, going out with a sonar in a boat and jigging heavy spoons vertically right into those fish is a really effective way to get them to hit a spoon. But in the wintertime, they're going to be cruising shallow and oftentimes near shore, and I tend to get 90% of my bites like within a few feet of the bank, where the water gets just deep enough that you can't see Now, as a non-tribal member, I can only fish in certain areas from the bank on Omak Lake. But this north end where I'm at there's plenty of bank access here. You can fish, there's a nice beach on the north end there if you like to fly fish that has plenty of space for back casting. And that beach is the most popular spot in April when the big fish are cruising along the shoreline. There's a lot of fly anglers come down there and fish chironomids. I generally don't get into that. I'm just not a huge fan of chironomid fishing and just staring at a little foam bobber. I really love how hard these fish hit, and so I generally prefer to spin fish for them. But you can fish from shore all along the north end here. There's some access on the south end. That road is pretty rough and generally requires four-wheel drive, whereas this one does not. You can also drive into Mission Bay, which is the bay straight across from me. That's open most of the year, except it's closed during the spring spawn, because that's where they gather broodstock for the lake during that time. But otherwise, you can fish it from a boat pretty much anywhere aside from Mission Bay during the spawn. There we go. Found here right after I started to pick it up. See the pressure on them. It's a barbless fishery. I haven't seen it yet. Keeping that pressure though. So there's another really popular lake or famous lake for Lahontans in Washington, and that is Lenor Lake, and that is located in a coulee. Ooh, this is a nice fish. A little bit bigger than the one I had this morning. Another hen. It's in the Sun Lakes area in Grant County, and that lake is a much shallower and weedier lake. All of these Lahontan lakes are all alkaline, so no other fish can really live there, at least no other trout can. And they're all a little bit different. This one's deep, and Omak Lake's mostly deep and doesn't have a lot of vegetation, but Lenor is fairly shallow and has a lot of vegetation. And I've not had the greatest luck there with spinners and spoons and things because of the weediness of the lake, but fly anglers do very well there with fishing their chironomid flies and balanced leeches under an indicator, especially on the north end during the spring spawn, so like in April and May. That's the best area to target them. So another pretty hen on a spoon. Nice. She's a little bulkier than the first fish of the day. I just barely had her. Right on the nose. There, it's off. That water is so cold. This lake doesn't freeze over in the winter because of its alkalinity. So it's open year-round at Omak Lake. Whereas Lenor actually does freeze because it's so shallow. There you go, you can see that hen. She's a little bit bigger and girthier. Her stomach's full of something there. She's got some chunk. But Lenor Lake actually does freeze because it's shallower, and it has a weird fishing season, and it's like from March 1st until the end of November. So sometimes you can actually ice fish it during extremely cold years. But most of the year it's open during its fishing season. You can see that cutthroat on her. Really nice looking fish. Man, she's got a huge belly. You ready? See you later. There she goes. Okay, so I switched up to a 1/4 ounce little Cleo spoon. It's very bright. It's a super overcast day. It was supposed to be sunny, but I think with this light conditions, the brighter the things are, the more likely I think they're gonna get hit. And they do love chartreuse. They love metallic blue as well. I had a rooster tail one time that was had chartreuse blades and a blue body, and that thing was, if all else failed, I knew that would catch a fish. The water's really cold, so and fish are ectothermic, so they're not exactly super energetic right now. So I'm thinking that a slower wobble of this little Cleo might lend itself to getting hit a little bit more, but we'll see. I'm gonna fish it down to this corner down here and then hike back and fish the other side, which drops off a lot deeper. This is more of a flat, kind of gently goes out. It's about 15-20 feet deep out to where I'm casting, whereas over there I can cast into 30-40 feet of water. So I fished Lenor many years ago, and several times in fact, and never got a bump. I fished it across different seasons, even tried ice fishing it one year, and I really have struggled in that lake. I think a big part of that is that lake was still rebounding from an illegal netting operation by some local Russians. Were going in and netting out hundreds of trout and selling them on the black market. And that fishery took a little bit of time to recover. It sounds like the stocks have gotten better there, and that fishery is bouncing back as a lot of those fish are starting to mature and put on a lot of weight. So I need to go back and give it another try. It has a lot of great public access because there's wildlife area, state wildlife area all along it. So there's plenty of areas to access. But mostly I just see people fishing on the very north end in the spring, and then I almost never see anybody on it outside of that season. So it doesn't seem to be very pressured. I don't know if that's just a reflection of the difficulty of that fishery, but it is very beautiful. All of the Lahontan lakes in Washington State, both on and off the res, are absolutely in stunning landscapes. Some are in the mountains like Omak Lake here, others are in coulees, and some are in some really beautiful sagebrush systems. Oh, there's actually a Lahontan hit the surface over there. That is very rare for me to see a Lahontan on the surface. There has been some bug hatch here because it's in the mid-30s, and there are a few species of aquatic insects coming out. And there's a second feeding, so same fish out there. He's just a little too far for me to get to. Oh, dang. I saw a ball right there. See if I can get him to come back. Sometimes they'll come back, but I'm pretty sure I stung him. I saw his head wiggle a bit. So I've switched up to a brass and red Castmaster 3/8 ounce. Wasn't getting enough action on that little Cleo to convince me that it was worth it. This lake used to be a lot more pressured, and I used to catch a lot bigger fish here. There's one just went up right there. But you can see the boat ramp here is totally unimproved. It used to have a nice concrete boat ramp, and it just fell apart. You can see chunks of it laying around out here everywhere. It used to have a dock here, but it just got vandalized so many times. And then once the tribes implemented their reservation pass system, the amount of pressure here just dropped off, and just got to be a little too expensive for a lot of people to justify coming here. And I think that reduction in fishing pressure, but they maintained a relatively high stocking rate, just led to some minor stunting. And I think they've dialed back the number of fish they're putting in here in an effort to bring larger fish back to the lake. But yeah, I used to catch, fish in excess of 20 inches pretty consistently 4 or 5 years ago, but now those fish are harder to come by. But there are several other lakes that are not on the reservation that do have larger fish, and fish more consistently, and I've seen some trends even to even bigger fish in some of those lakes. I'm hoping over here this drops off straight away. Over there it's flats. Out here I can cast this thing out into 60-80 foot of water, and hopefully we'll find some bigger fish over here. First cast. Oh, I lost him. Dang it. That's a drag. That was a good hit. There's a fish right there. He's chasing it, chasing it, chasing it. He's a nice buck. A nice sized fish. That's two fish I've engaged with this since I moved over here. The water's so murky though, it's hard to see that brass and red. I guess they're seeing it, but it makes me wonder if I shouldn't go to something silver. Something a little more flashy. Oh, there he is. Oh, he's so pretty. Oh, he missed. He's right here. No. Just not going to do it. He's not going to commit. Here you can actually see there's a lot of small fish here. They will eat these small fish, but they also eat very, very large fish as well. But you'll see these small fish are up here to avoid predation from the bigger trout. And fish is their primary diet, although they also eat a lot of insects. But I've had like 20-inch fish puke up like 7 and 8 inch long trout. It's crazy. Right, so I've moved over to Mission Bay because the bite was pretty slow. You can see this ramp's all busted up too. But the bite was slow over there, and there are a couple of loudmouth dudes come down who wanted to stare at their indicators and use their loud volume voice, so just wanted to get somewhere quieter, a little more peaceful. The bay is pretty shallow, but it does hold fish year-round. Let's see if we can at least find one or two more. That would be nice. Fish chasing it, little guy. Little guy chasing it. And at the other lakes, I like to fish for these Lahontans. You know, there are plenty of fish this size, but they're a lot bigger average. And one of my favorites is Blue Lake in northern Okanagan County near another lake called Wanakut. Let me get this guy off there. There he goes. And that lake, unfortunately, doesn't have very great bank access, but there's a little bit, and I have caught fish from shore there, but it's a great lake for small watercraft, kayaks, belly boats. You can get bigger boats in there, but it's just a really challenging ramp to do so because it gets quite muddy. There's not a ton of gravel, so you have to be a little bit careful, but you can get smaller watercraft in there easy, small aluminum boats, and the fish in there are very impressive in size. That one has a traditional season, so it opens at the 4th Saturday in April and then closes on the end of October. And yeah, the fish in there average 18 to 22 inches. They're really robust, very healthy looking fish. So it's definitely one of my favorite ones for targeting bigger average size of fish. And I've done well trolling there. I've done very well there jigging for them, jigging spoons. So it's a great spot to target, and it's really isolated. That's one of the things though. It's almost in Canada, so you really have to drive a long way to get to it. Nice to find something of size here today. We've had that one that came in and followed, but I just haven't seen anything big today. hitting the gear. But you saw how small he was. That fish I just caught. The spoon is like a third the length of his body. Ooh, I think I just had a bite. Maybe not. Maybe wishful thinking. There's a big fish right there. Got it. Yes. They're falling right to the bank. Another hen. She's going crazy. She's pretty. I must have had a bite out there. I felt like just the pressure come off, like the fish mouthed it. And the other lake that I really enjoy is a lake called Grimes Lake, and it is in Douglas County in central Washington and just north of Jameson Lake. But it has a really strange season. It's only open from like June 1st to the end of August. And she's really pretty though. And it's a very difficult lake to access in terms of fishing from the bank. You can't really bank fish it. You have to have a watercraft, but that watercraft also has to basically be hand launched. So you need like a kayak or belly boat. I've seen some drift boats get in there, and the fish in there are also very big, and it's a low pressure fishery, and the sagebrush really pretty. Beautiful hen. I love the colors on them. What a gorgeous fish. There she goes. A few more fish over here in Mission Bay. So one of the tough things about Grimes though is that you have to like paddle through like a couple hundred yards of just 1 to 3 foot weedy water. So it can be kind of a pain to launch and get out to the fishable lake. And because it doesn't open until June 1st, often the fish have already gone deep. The thermocline is usually already set up by that time, and those fish will be hanging out in 20 to 40 foot of water. So it's not that great for, targeting fish near surface or fly fishing. Most of the guys I see fly fishing it, they're just hanging a chironomid over the side on a full sinking line. But it's a really great place to jig for them using jigging spoons or marabou jigs. But yeah, definitely if you're planning to fly fish Grimes, be prepared to fish deep. I've been there several times, and every time there's fly fishermen there, and I'm just sitting there next to them whacking fish after fish, and they're not like getting a bite all day. It's just because they can't get deep enough to target those fish. I felt really bad last time I was there. There was a guy with his kid, and like they were not getting anything, and I offered to let them borrow one of my jigging setups so they, for his kid, so his kid could at least catch some fish. And the kid was like all excited, like, yeah, I want to do it. And then the dad was like, no, we're just gonna fly fish. So he basically just made his son sit there and just chuck fluff at nothing the whole day for no reason. It's a great way to get your kids to hate fishing, just to force them to do it your way. All right, I'm gonna make this one my last cast. There are other smaller lakes that do have Lahontan cutthroats in Washington state, but in my experience, those lakes don't fish very consistently, and access is kind of an issue to all of them, so I'm not even going to mention them here. I just think the 4 that I've mentioned are really your best bet at connecting with this really unique species of cutthroat trout. Like I said, they're the only trout that can really survive in these really alkaline waters. But it's a neat fishery opportunity that we have here in Washington state, instead of having to drive to California or Nevada, where you can find them as well. All right, I'll put links to the lakes below so you can do your own research on them a little bit more. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comment section, and I'll see you next time. Just remember, fish smarter, not harder. Well, one more cast, I guess.